quiet village lies still under the stars. Crickets chirp. A dog barks once, then silence. Inside a small mud house, a mother checks her sleeping child. He has very light skin, almost glowing in the dark. His hair is pale yellow. His name is William. Suddenly, a soft metal sound. The window bars shake. The mother freezes. Then a hand reaches through the window with a knife. She screams. They weren't thieves. They weren't rebels. They came for the child's body. In Malawi, some people believe that if you have the body part of a person with albinism, you will become rich. This belief has led to a black market of murder and fear.
Believe their body parts are being used in traditional rituals and medicine.
A Kenyan accused of trying to sell an albino has been sentenced to 17 years in jail and a fine of more than $50,000.
In a small village in Malawi, a baby was born with light skin and yellowish hair. His name was William. His mother looked at him with love, but also with fear. She had heard stories of people with skin like her son's, people with albinism being hunted. Albinism is a condition where someone is born with very light skin, hair, and eyes. It's not a disease. It just means the body has less color, pigment. But in parts of Africa, like Malawi, some people believe dangerous things about albinism. They think the body parts of albinism people bring good luck, that they can make someone rich or give power. This is not true, but the belief is strong and deadly. William's parents tried to protect him. They did not let him play far from home. They kept his head covered, but they were poor, and they lived in a small hut. It had no doors that could lock, no lights outside, and one night, when William was 6 years old, he disappeared. His body was found days later, missing arms and legs. His parents cried until they couldn't cry anymore. But William was not the only one. From 2014 to 2020, dozens of people with albinism were killed or went missing in Malawi. Some were just children. Their bodies were found without arms, legs, fingers, and sometimes even heads missing. Sometimes the people who did it were strangers. Sometimes they were family or neighbors. People who believe in witchcraft pay a lot of money for body parts of albinism people. They believe these parts bring magic. So, criminals began kidnapping and killing albinism to sell the parts to witch doctors. The police in Malawi were shocked. They had not seen this kind of crime before, but it was not easy to stop. In many cases, police officers did not investigate properly. Sometimes they were scared. Other times, people paid them to stay quiet. One man, named George, was arrested for trying to sell bones. The bones were from an albinism man he had helped killing. George said he did it for money. A businessman in the city promised him over $2,000 for the bones. That is a lot of money in Malawi, where most people are very poor. George was caught before he could sell them, but many others were not caught. In one shocking case, a man named MacDonald Masambuka, who had albinism, disappeared. His body was found weeks later in a shallow grave. What made it worse was that his own brother was one of the killers. The brother confessed. He said a local pastor and a police officer had told him they would pay for MacDonald's body parts. The country was angry. People marched in the streets. "Stop the killings!" they shouted. They demanded justice. The president of Malawi, Peter Mutharika, promised to act. But still the attacks continued. Some albinism children were taken out of school. Others were hidden indoors. Parents feared for their children's lives. Many families moved to other areas. Some built stronger huts with locks, but even that wasn't always safe. One woman, Cecilia, had a young daughter with albinism. One night, she heard someone cutting the window bars of her house. She screamed. Neighbors came. The attackers ran. Cecilia knew they were trying to take her daughter. From that night, she never slept deeply again. People with albinism in Malawi were living in fear, and not just fear of death. Some were attacked and survived, but lost arms or fingers. Some were rejected by family. Many couldn't find jobs or go to school. The fear followed them everywhere. International groups like Amnesty International and the United Nations spoke out. They said Malawi needed to do more to protect people with albinism. They said the beliefs behind these crimes had to be stopped. In 2016, a report showed that body parts of people with albinism were sold for thousands of dollars. In some cases, people from Tanzania and Mozambique were crossing the border to buy them. It had become a business, a black market of death. Some traditional healers said they never used human parts. They blamed fake healers who lied to people. Real healers, they said, used plants and herbs, but the damage was already done. By 2020, the Malawian government passed new laws. They gave harsher punishment to anyone caught hurting or killing a person with albinism. Police officers were told to investigate faster. Special units were created. The courts gave longer prison sentences. But laws were not enough. The biggest challenge was changing people's minds. As fear spread among families with albinism, brave people began to stand up. Some of them were albino themselves. One of them was Overstone Kondowe, the first Malawian with albinism to be elected as a member of parliament. He spoke loudly in public. He went to schools and churches. He told people, albinism is not a curse. We are human beings, just like you. He asked people to stop believing lies from witch doctors and greedy sellers. His courage gave hope to many others. A group called the Association of Persons with Albinism in Malawi, APAM, also started doing more work. They trained families on how to protect themselves. They gave out whistles, phones, and even small alarms. They helped children with albinism stay in school and dream of the future. Some young albino women became nurses. Some boys became teachers. These were stories of light during a dark time. One village even started a neighborhood patrol. Every night, men would take turns watching the streets. They carried sticks and torches. They made sure no child went missing again. But the evil was still there. In 2019, 2 men were caught with human bones in a bag. They said they were taking them to sell to someone in a town across the border. The buyer had promised to make them rich. Again, it showed how deep the problem had become. People asked, who are these buyers? Some were local businessmen. Others came from other countries. Some believed in witchcraft. Others just wanted money. Some of them had power. That's why it was hard to stop. Still, hope was not lost. The court started giving life sentences to the killers. In McDonald Musambuka's case, his brother and several others were found guilty and sentenced. For the first time, people saw justice being done. But the government knew that punishment was not enough. They had to stop the beliefs. So they launched public education campaigns. Radios played messages that albinism was not magical. Posters showed pictures of smiling albino children saying, "I am just like you." Teachers were trained to explain albinism in schools. Some churches also helped. They told their members to protect people with albinism, not fear them. One pastor said, "God made everyone. No one's body is for sale." Slowly, things began to change. Fewer attacks were reported by 2022. Some albino children began walking to school again. Some families no longer hid in fear, but the road ahead is still long. One mother, Loveness, who lost her albino son in 2015, now visits villages to tell her story. She says, "My son's death must mean something. I want people to learn, to stop the killing, to see us as human." Today, Malawi continues to fight the cruel trade in body parts. There is more awareness, more protection, and more courage than before. But the fight is not over. It will only end when no child with albinism ever has to sleep in fear again.